What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, this is my post-fight commentary. It's not too much, so I'm gonna try to combine them, get this out of the way. In the first fight, first of all, let me say Golden Boy is taking over. They're definitely killing, in my opinion, top rank in terms of the fights that we've been seeing with Showtime and the fights that we've seen with top ranks in HBO recently. Most of the fights, in terms of rough and tumble affairs that I seen from Top Rank and HBO, the better ones were definitely the first quarter. But since then, I've seen a lot of great fights from Golden Boy. I'm talking about Zab Judah and Danny Garcia, the fight with Alfredo Angulo and Edislandi Lara, Josecito Lopez, Marcos Maidana. Today was a great fight card, no different. I thoroughly enjoyed these fights. Not to diss Top Rank, I did enjoy Gennady Golovkin and Matthew Macklin. Also Darren Barker, his fight with Daniel Gill. That was a good one. But just in terms of volume, I would say Showtime and Golden Boy, that partnership has put out more intriguing matches. Again, Gennady Golovkin versus Matthew Macklin wasn't what you call competitive to me. Gennady Golovkin looked sharp and did what he did and got Macklin out of there quick. Macklin didn't make it like a competitive fight, so to speak. So Showtime's definitely holding the torch in terms of the volume of good fights that we've seen from him. Not to say Top Rank hasn't had any good fights, but most of them, again, were in the first quarter. But Golden Boys had some thorough matches throughout, and today was no different on Showtime. We've seen Rafael Marquez, brother of Juan Manuel Marquez, and I think he should hang him up. I think he's given all he can to the game. He's 38 years old. He looked like in the later rounds he was starting to fatigue and getting a little ring rusty, and he got beat by a high volume, dedicated puncher. Not much punching power, but he just kind of took the Lamont Peterson approach and just outworked and outgrinded and outhearted his opponent. And he did exactly what he had to do. Efren Esquivias, um, he used a varied attack. He threw the punches from different angles. And Efren Esquivias, he did what he had to do. He took everything in his toolkit and he used it. He varied his attack. He threw the punches from different angles. He kept Rafael Marquez out of balance, and he did something that all fighters should do, especially for aging fighters or fighters straight out of retirement or off of long layoffs like Marquez was, and he went to the body. Don't just headhunt, especially against a big puncher. And eventually Efren started walking him down, and he used that varied attack and went to the body, and he was able to KO Rafael Marquez in that fight. Good fight. Marquez was still in it because he had the equalizer, which was his punching power. Efren, he really took the Lamont Peterson approach, just outworked, outhearted, and outgrinded his opponent, the older opponent, shop-worn opponent, and he did what he had to do. He knew what was on the line for his career if he took another L, and he looked good. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind putting him up against Leo Santa Cruz or whoever else he wants to fight, Kiko Martinez or whoever. He said he wants to fight someone with the title. I think that performance has garnered him to get at least a title shot. Not saying he will beat these guys, but he did fight like a warrior and he never gave up. And he was in against a veteran and a big puncher. So that was a great fight for me. I think Rafael Marquez should hang him up. I think, again, he's done all he can do for the sport of boxing. And it's time that he hangs it up so he doesn't end up um, more or less like a Roy Jones Jr., someone who was great and gave great things to the sport of boxing and then just became known as a faded fighter. I don't want to see him travel down that path. So respect to Marquez and also Efren for a nice performance on both of their behalfs. And then the main event, check my prediction. I said this, I called it. I said rounds 3 to 5. I was being generous just because they're both heavyweights, and it's basically everything that I called, except for the actual round numbers. But I knew Seth Mitchell would not be able to last with Chris Arreola, and I gave you my reasons in my prediction video. If you didn't watch that, check my channel for that if you want to hear or confirm. But realistically, Chris Arreola, He's been in there with the stiffer competition. He's been in there with hard punchers. He's been in there with the Klitschko. And in that video, I said he went the distance. I guess he didn't actually go the distance because Arreola's corner stopped it. What I should have said is he withstood the Klitschko's. Not like he was looking good or winning the fight or dominating or anything like that. But whereas most people get knocked out by the Klitschko's, he was still standing at the end. His corner decided that he was taking too much punishment and stopped it. So you got to give him credit for that, for not just getting knocked out and blown out. And this was a late stoppage from the corner. So he went some rounds with the Klitschko's. Also, he's been in there with, just like I said, overall tougher competition. I think Stavern is a bigger puncher and is someone who's been boxing for quite some time as well. And he has more power, I would say, than Seth Mitchell and more overall boxing ability. Again, Seth Mitchell, one of his downsides, other than his chin and his ability to take a punch at the heavyweight division, is him starting boxing so late. He started like 24, 25. This was his like plan B, so to speak. And he was a football player, and injuries kept him from pursuing his ultimate dream, which was the NFL. In Golden Boy or HBO or whatever, they've seen he's like a likable dude. They're trying to reinvigorate the heavyweight American champion, and they put some stake in Seth Mitchell. I think they even gave him a 2-day special. Again, he's a likable guy. He seems like a God-fearing man. I wish him the best. However, I don't see him being at the elite level. I never really did. I think people like Deontay Wilder have a better chance of being the next American superstar, or even Chris Arreola, just in terms of getting a title. Seth Mitchell, again, starting boxing so late, there's little nuances and things that you don't learn when you've only been doing the sport of boxing for a shorter period of time, or when you started late. And unfortunately, when you get to the elite levels against guys like Chris Arreola, or guys who have been doing this all their life, it's hard for those fighters to not be exploited by the fighters who have been doing this all their life. They've seen the different styles. That's why you get guys like Rigondeaux, who has like 1 million amateur fights, and it's hard to beat him. It's hard to beat him because over the years he's acquired a lot of knowledge, a lot of hours in boxing in terms of training. And I mean, obviously he's an anomaly. He's really good for being 12 fights into his pro career and doing what he's done. But again, that experience cannot be duplicated, and it's really hard to duplicate in a short period of time. You could be really athletic, but again, there's still some things that you will probably miss. It's like going to a job. You could be a good salesperson. Let's say you start a job at, I don't know, fucking Sears, anywhere. You could be a good salesperson, but if somebody is on their job and they've been working at that job for 10 or 15 years, it's going to be hard for you in maybe like 6 months to a year's time be able to know more tricks of the trade and more things about that company, more screens in their computer, or like I don't know, just little navigation things and things to make your job easier than the person who has more experience and has been doing it like 3 times longer than you. So again, that's going to be Seth Mitchell's downfall. Had he started boxing and not played football, and he started boxing at a younger age, I would give him more of a chance. But even still, even with that being considered, I don't like the way he takes punches. And I said that in my prediction video. I don't think he takes punches well. And you're in there with bangers. You're in there with like heavyweights. They were talking about at one point Seth Mitchell versus Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder, so far so good. It looks like he's a vicious puncher, and he's taller than Seth Mitchell. So I don't see Seth Mitchell having won that fight. In other news, they're talking about making Deontay Wilder the Bronze Bomber versus Chris Arreola. Now, this is a fight that I would love to see. I think this makes a lot more sense, even if somehow Seth Mitchell won against Chris Arreola. I would say Chris Arreola versus Deontay Wilder is a much better fight, because Deontay Wilder is a fighter who shows vicious power, but at the end of the day, he hasn't really been in against anyone with the seasoning or the veteran experience of a Chris Arreola. So it would be intriguing, and I would be anxious to see how he responds to taking a shot from an experienced fighter who can also crack, like Chris Arreola. Chris Arreola has reinvented himself more than once. He lost a lot of weight, a shit ton of weight, and that would be an interesting, very interesting matchup to me. Deontay Wilder definitely has size, he has power, but he lacks the pro experience. Now, can he rise to the occasion? Yes, this is boxing. Anything can happen. Anyone at any given moment, especially in the heavyweight division, um, can rise to the occasion. But it would be interesting, and I don't think Chris Arreola is the type that's going to lay down for anybody. And I think he's a very prideful person. I don't think he would just lay down and bow down to Deontay Wilder. You got to physically, you got to do what Stavern did and break his nose in multiple places and cause him to change his game plan, so to speak, or knock him out or stop him or whatever the situation is. So that'd be a very good matchup. As far as Seth Mitchell, I don't really see where he goes from here. I don't think he has the skill set. I don't think he has the chin in order to sustain heavyweight punishment. Even Tony Thompson lost his last fight. Guys like that, I think at the end of the day, they're going to be a hair above him, especially if they have power and they've been doing it longer. So I don't really know where Seth Mitchell goes from here. Again, wish him the best. He's a likable dude. That's really my thoughts about this whole topic. Props to Chris Arreola. You could tell he was proud. Another thing that I noticed, why I knew even more so than my prediction video that it was going to be all bad for Seth Mitchell, Chris Arreola switched his training regimen and he went to Arizona, which is a different, totally different climate, and he's fighting in California. Arizona, for those of you who have been, is very different in terms of the climate, the humidity. It's like a really dry heat. California is not as humid as like Florida or whatnot. And aside from that, when the referee was announcing the rules, like, oh, I went over the rules in the dressing room, and I was looking in their face. Seth Mitchell was kind of looking down, like wasn't really making eye contact, and Chris Arreola was just glaring at him, just staring him down. It looked like he was in the zone. He didn't look like he was listening to the ref. He was just like mean mugging Seth Mitchell the whole time. So it let me know that Chris Arreola was going to try to make a statement, and he looked really, really focused. So that's my thoughts. Those are my observations on the fight. Props again to Chris Arreola for doing what he did, and props to Efren for a valiant performance against a veteran opponent. Great fight card. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Let me know what you guys thought of tonight's fights. Where do you see Chris Arreola ending up next? Do you want to see him fight Deontay Wilder, or would you rather see him rematch Stavern? So leave a comment. Let me know what you think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next videos, Ego signing off.